Hey everyone, this is the MCT Witch, and these are a few thoughts on why reality transurfing has definitely helped me. Enjoy.
Reality transurfing has helped me since I started learning and practicing some of the principles. Things that used to get me really upset in the past aren't getting me upset as much. Case in point, I was scanning the news headlines, something I was incapable of doing
Not all that long ago, thanks to my extreme sensitivity, some might call it the natural witchy empathic flaw, the ability to take everything that happens to one in the world or happens around one or it's happening to other people and to feel it so strongly as if it's happening to yourself.
Not just a choice, but I just couldn't do it. It really got me very, very upset and was harmful to me. So I was like boycotting the news out of self-preservation.
So watching the news, watching terrible things, hearing about the murders and the serial rapists and the crimes against humanity that happen oh so often. And of course, since it's the news, that's the stuff they focus on. It's rarely the happy stuff. So if I watched the news, it got to me. If I saw a headline, it got to me. And I tried so hard to not see it, to protect myself. But that's all changed a little bit since reality transurfing. Oddly enough, funnily enough, despite Vadim's suggestions that you don't bother with the news or anything around it, as it is basically just one way to get snagged and sucked into the giant pendulum, which is the news. The thing is, though, if and when I am exposed to the news right now, it's not affecting me the way it was. So there.
But since I've learned about the concept of dropping importance, I'm actually dropping importance a lot, which is amazing because, in many cases when you learn a new philosophy, practice, religion, strategy, whatever, most of the time you forget to actually implement those strategies unless you're very disciplined. That's not something that I am. Perhaps some of you can relate. And yet, here I am, day after day, always sort of just remembering in the nick of time that, hey, wait a minute, you're just putting too much importance on this. Drop it and see what happens. And I do, and I drop it. And suddenly this crisis that was raising my blood pressure and making me sad or making me anxious or making me angry or making me mad was gone.
For example, I have an iPhone, and for the last 6 months, I've been trying various methods, going on Google, searching. I haven't gone to the Apple Store yet, but eventually I'll probably go in there and say, hey, how do I get rid of this news thing? It shows up whether I want it there or not. And for the longest time, it really was bothering me because, like I said, just seeing a headline was enough to put me into a spiral of depression or anxiety, etc. So recently, I have been watching television a little bit and reading the Washington Post and the LA Times and actually reading some of the articles that are showing up thanks to Apple's insistence that we are not not exposed to the news. And this headline came up about an ex-police officer who's now 72 years old, who they've connected to and arrested for serial rape. So this guy was like terrorizing the Southland of California for decades, and he's been caught and linked to these murders, and he's going to be tried for these not murders, these rapes, the serial rapes. And so there's this one of those pictures, police sketches of a guy, and then they show the picture of this older man, and I looked into his eyes, and I felt the pain of all those victims for a moment, and I saw that perhaps behind this man's eyes was in fact a fucked up, sick individual. And instead of getting sick to my stomach and wanting to vomit and hide under the rug, basically, I thought instead, how different is this from me listening to a Michael Connelly book, one of the Bosch series, where they have bad people. And yes, one is fiction, one is reality. That's obviously a big difference. But if I can listen to a novel about it, then I can and not succumb to depression and anxiety and lose it essentially emotionally, then I should be able to read a headline about reality where this actually does happen and not lose it and become emotionally a basket case. And how can I do that? By dropping the importance. So I feel almost guilty for not taking it all in and getting upset. But the guilt is another thing Vadim talks about. If you have any guilt, as if you're supposed to suffer for everyone else's pain, for some reason, right? Is that not just another example of getting pulled by a pendulum of some type? It is. So I need to drop importance. And once I remember that, once I have that realization, whoa.
Just gone like that. Boom. It's like I chose not to give it too much importance. And therefore, I was able to resist, I guess, the attack of the pendulums, I mean, here's one way to look at it. Picture yourself in a sort of matrix-like world, in an imaginary room that's surrounded by billions of other rooms that are all the same. And all around you are these giant, you have really high ceilings, and all around you are these pendulums dangling from ropes from the ceiling. And as you walk through this metaphorical room, which represents your immediate vicinity options that you take in a given day, your life track, where you are on the life track in the biggest picture, right? Or maybe the smallest, where you are, how old you are, your current health, everything current about this moment. And then, as you're trying to decide, or you're actually creating the decision that moves you onto your next life path, when these thoughts come up of things that are important and you attach too much importance to it, then you are suddenly subject to the damage caused by excess potentials, which is what having too much importance on something creates every time. And as a result, as you put too much importance on something, picture all these pendulums that are surrounding you, these giant metal balls, dangling from, each one represents a different pendulum, and there's an infinite number of them. So, just picture this. Now you're trying to walk and these pendulums start vibrating more because, or maybe not all of them, but the one that is attributed to whatever you're giving too much importance to. So here you are in this place, and the pendulums will knock you off the path that you would have been on originally, or preferably, or just a different path. Who knows whether the previous path was better or not than the one, the pendulum, maybe steered you towards, for like a long run. But in the short term, the pendulums, almost always steer you in the wrong path. At least that's, I think, what Vadim is trying to say, that pendulums in general knock you into what tend to be more negative life paths. So there. So that's the first thing that I have picked up, without effort, I might add. I'm just reading some of this stuff, talking about it slightly, and that's it. No correspondence course, no great intellect here, and yet it's inevitable that not a day goes by where I haven't caught myself in the act of losing some temper, or just making a choice I wouldn't be happy with in the long run, getting upset or getting concerned, or maybe saying something I'd regret. I'm just more likely now to stop before anything gets out of hand. And it's because of a reality transurfing concept like dropping importance that just pops into my head. And that's the miracle. That is truly a miracle for me, because I've read lots of self-help books and watched a lot of videos and taken a lot of time reading and absorbing, and yet those little messages just don't keep popping up into my mind. Like for example, Mel somebody's 5-second rule. I think when I was in the process of reading the book, yes, I thought about it a lot, but it's been months and I forgot. I no longer say, 5-second rule. That lasted for like a day or two. But, reality transurfing has been nonstop for me. And maybe that's because the book's so long. It's going to take me forever to read it. I don't know. But, I think there's something else going on here, and I can't explain what it is, but it's almost like magic, which of course I'm fascinated and very into. But it's as if just getting some of the basic original concepts implanted in the brain once is all you need to have it sort of be there for you, at least at some level. So that's the second thing. See, I kind of led into it after the fact. Reality transurfing is easy-ish. There's something about it that just knowing a little bit of it can change you in some way. Just having that extra tool tool in your toolbox. So that was like I said. The second thing is reality transurfing. That first wave is sort of easy to catch. Okay, for surfing purposes. You'll get something out of it, even if you don't have a history of necessarily getting a lot of things that you try. You'll probably get something out of reality transurfing. So I highly recommend it. I'd start with the 78 days, probably, then do from the beginning of the big yellow book. So thank you for listening. And like and subscribe. Keeps me going. Even 1 or 2 subscribers a week, and I'm like, whee! So thanks again, and I'll talk to you soon in the next video.